When seven-time Formula One champion Lewis Hamilton sat down for what seemed like a routine BBC interview about his move to Ferrari, no one expected the moment that would change everything. One simple question about his past relationship with Nicole Scherzinger caused the usually composed superstar to freeze mid-sentence, his media-trained smile cracking to reveal raw, unexplained pain. That 3-second moment of vulnerability, captured live on television and watched by millions, sparked a chain of events that would uncover a decade-old secret so devastating it had shaped both their lives in ways the world never knew. What could cause such a reaction from a man who had faced the world's toughest questions for 20 years? What truth about 2014 had been buried so deep that even mentioning Nicole's name could shatter Lewis's composure completely? The answer would prove that sometimes the people we love most make the hardest sacrifices in silence, and that some secrets, no matter how well-intentioned, can destroy the very thing they were meant to protect. This is the story of what really happened between Lewis Hamilton and Nicole Scherzinger. A story of possible choices, devastating consequences, and the courage it takes to face the truth after 10 years of living with lies. It begins with a question that should have been simple, asked in a brightly lit BBC studio on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. The bright studio lights felt warm on Lewis Hamilton's face as he settled into the red leather chair. The BBC Sport logo glowed behind him. Camera 3 focused on his relaxed smile. After 20 years in Formula One, live television interviews felt as natural as breathing. "We're back in 5, 4, 3. The floor manager's voice faded as he pointed silently at Sarah Chen. Sarah Chen had been asking tough questions for 15 years. She knew how to make drivers comfortable before finding the story they didn't want to tell. Today felt different though. Lewis looked happy, really happy. "Welcome back to BBC Sport. I'm Sarah Chen, and I'm here with 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton." Sarah's voice was warm and professional. "Lewis, it's been 2 months since you joined Ferrari. How does it feel?" Lewis leaned forward slightly. His eyes lit up the way they always did when talking about racing. "Sarah, it feels like coming home. The passion at Maranello is incredible. Every person there lives and breathes Ferrari. Walking into that factory for the first time." He paused, searching for words. "It gave me chills. The fans seem excited too. Social media has been buzzing since your announcement. The Tifosi are special. I've raced against them for so long. Now they're cheering for me. It's emotional, you know?" Lewis's voice got quieter. "My dad always said Ferrari was the dream team." He was right. Sarah nodded, checking her notes. The interview was going perfectly. Lewis was open and relaxed. "Perfect time to dig deeper. You've achieved so much in your career. 7 championships, over 100 wins. What drives you now?" "Legacy," Lewis said without hesitation. "I want young kids to look at me and see what's possible. When I was growing up in Stevenage, F1 felt impossible for someone like me. Now I want to prove that anyone can reach their dreams." The studio felt warm and comfortable. Lewis talked about his foundation work, his music interests, his fashion line. Sarah noticed how his whole face changed when discussing things he cared about. "You seem genuinely happy, Lewis. More relaxed than I've seen you in years." Lewis laughed. "I am happy. For the first time in a long time, everything feels right. The team, the car, my personal life. It all makes sense." Sarah glanced at her producer behind the camera. Tom gave her a subtle nod. Time for the deeper questions. "Speaking of personal life, you've been quite private lately. No public relationships. Keeping things quiet. Is that intentional?" "Absolutely. I learned the hard way that putting your personal life in the spotlight can be damaging. Some things need to stay private to survive." Sarah's pulse quickened. This was her opening. "You've had some very public relationships though. Rita Ora, Shakira for a brief time. And of course Nicole Scherzinger. That relationship was particularly significant." Lewis's smile didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. "Nicole was a long time ago, Sarah. I prefer to focus on the present." "Of course. But fans still ask about her. She was at many of your races. You seemed very much in love. We were young. It didn't work out. These things happen." Lewis's voice stayed steady, but his hands tensed slightly on the chair arms. Sarah felt the shift in energy. Every good journalist knew this feeling. The moment when politeness gave way something real, something that mattered. I'm sure they do. But there was something unique about that relationship, wasn't there? The way it ended seemed to affect you deeply. Louis was quiet for a moment too long. The silence felt heavy in the bright studio. Like I said, Sarah, that's ancient history. Behind the camera, Marcus Webb shifted nervously. Louis's manager had been with him for 12 years. He knew every expression, every tell. Right now, Louis looked like a man walking on thin ice. Sarah made a decision. Sometimes in journalism, you had to trust your instincts. Push a little harder to find the truth. Louis, I have to ask you something directly. Last year, Nicole gave an interview where she mentioned having regrets about choices she made in 2014. She seemed emotional talking about that time period. Do you know what she was referring to? The question hung in the air like smoke. Louis went completely still. His media-trained smile froze on his face. For just a moment, maybe 3 seconds, Sarah saw something raw and painful flash across his features. His jaw tightened. His eyes went distant, like he was seeing something from far away. The cameras caught it all. Hi. Louis started, then stopped. He blinked rapidly, coming back to the present. I'm sorry. What was the question? But Sarah had seen enough. Something about Nicole Scherzinger in 2014 had just caused Lewis Hamilton to completely lose his composure on live television. I asked about Nicole's comments regarding 2014. She mentioned having regrets about choices she made that year. Louis's recovery was swift, but not complete. He forced his smile back into place, but it didn't reach his eyes. Nicole's entitled to her feelings about the past. I can't speak for her choices or regrets. As I said, I focus on moving forward. But surely you remember 2014. That was your second championship year. You and Nicole were together during that entire season, weren't you? Sarah, I really don't see how this relates to my move to Ferrari. Louis's voice had an edge now. Professional but firm. Marcus stepped forward from behind the cameras. Perhaps we could move on to questions about the upcoming season. Sarah looked at Marcus, then back at Louis. The champion was composed again, but she could see tension in his shoulders. Whatever had just happened, it was significant. Of course. Let's talk about your goals for 20. The rest of the interview proceeded normally. Louis discussed Ferrari's car development, his relationship with his new teammate, his hopes for the season. But Sarah wasn't really listening anymore. She was thinking about those 3 seconds when Lewis Hamilton had looked like someone had just opened an old wound. And that's all we have time for today. Lewis Hamilton. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks, Sarah. Always a pleasure. They shook hands as the cameras stopped rolling. Louis's grip was firm, his smile polite, but he wouldn't quite meet her eyes. As Louis walked toward the exit with Marcus, Sarah heard fragments of their hushed conversation. I shouldn't have asked that. Told you this might happen. Need to call? The studio door closed behind them, leaving Sarah alone with her thoughts and a growing certainty that she had stumbled onto something big. Something about Nicole Scherzinger and 2014 that Lewis Hamilton desperately wanted to keep buried. The corridor outside the BBC studio felt cold after the warm lights inside. Marcus Webb's hands shook as he pressed his phone to his ear. His other hand gripped Louis's arm, guiding him quickly toward the exit. We need to go. Now, Marcus whispered. Louis walked like he was in a dream. His face was pale. The confident man who had entered the studio 30 minutes ago was gone. In his place was someone who looked lost and hurt. Louis, stay with me, Marcus said. Don't talk to anyone. Not yet. They pushed through the glass doors into the London afternoon. Rain was starting to fall, matching the dark clouds that seemed to follow them everywhere lately. Marcus's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen and his face went white. Get in the car, he told Louis. The black Mercedes was waiting at the curb. Marcus practically pushed Louis into the passenger seat before climbing behind the wheel. His phone rang again immediately. Marcus Webb, he answered, starting the engine. Did you see it? The voice on the other end was sharp, angry. Female. Linda, I can explain. You said this would never come up again. You promised me 10 years ago that this was buried. Marcus glanced at Louis, who was staring out the window like he couldn't hear anything. Maybe he couldn't. Sometimes trauma did that to people. It caught us off guard. Sarah Chen is good at her job. Too good. This could destroy everything we've built. Everything Nicole has worked for. I know, I'm handling it. Handle it. Marcus, this was live television. People saw his reaction. They're going to start asking questions. Marcus pulled into London traffic. Windshield wipers fighting the rain. What do you want me to do, Linda? We can't change what just happened. You need to control the story. Get ahead of it. Make something up if you have to. I'm not making anything up. That's not how this works. The line went quiet for a moment. Then Linda's voice came back. Softer but more dangerous. Then you better hope no one digs too deep. Because if the truth comes out, it won't just hurt Louis. It will destroy Nicole too. And she's been through enough. The call ended. Marcus threw his phone onto the dashboard and cursed under his breath. In the passenger seat, Louis finally spoke. She knows, doesn't she? Who knows what? Marcus tried to keep his voice normal. Linda, Nicole's manager, she knows what Sarah was talking about. Marcus didn't answer, he couldn't. After 12 years of protecting Louis, this was the one secret he'd hoped would stay buried forever. They drove through central London in silence. Past Big Ben, over the Thames, through neighborhoods where normal people lived normal lives without secrets that could explode at any moment. I should have told you, Louis said quietly. Told me what? That I never got over it. That I still think about her. About what happened. Marcus's grip tightened on the steering wheel. Louis, we've talked about this. Moving forward is the only option. But what if she's right? What if people start digging? Then we deal with it. How? Louis turned to look at his manager for the first time since leaving the studio. His eyes were red. How do we deal with something like this? Marcus pulled the car over to the side of the road. They were near Hyde Park. Families were walking by with umbrellas. Couples holding hands. People living their lives without the weight of impossible choices from the past. Louis, listen to me. What happened in 2014 was tragic. But it wasn't your fault. You have to remember that. Wasn't it though? Louis's voice broke slightly. If I had been different. If I had been there more. If I... Stop. Marcus's voice was firm. We've been through this 1,000 times. You were fighting for a championship. Nicole understood that. She made her choice. Her choice. Louis laughed, but there was no humor in it. She made that choice because of me. Because of the pressure I put on her. Because I was too focused on racing to see what she was going through. Marcus's phone buzzed with a text message. He glanced at it and his stomach dropped. Call me immediately. Sarah Chen is asking questions. David was their publicist. If he was worried, things were bad. We need to get you home, Marcus said, starting the car again. Who was that? David. The story is already spreading. Louis closed his eyes and leaned back against the headrest. It's happening, isn't it? The thing we've been afraid of for 10 years. Nothing is happening yet. Sarah asked a question. You had a reaction. That's all. But even as Marcus said it, he knew it wasn't true. Sarah Chen wasn't just any journalist. She was the kind of person who saw a crack and kept pushing until the whole wall fell down. His phone rang again. This time it was David. Marcus, we have a problem. How big? Social media is blowing up. Louis' reaction is trending. People are making videos, analyzing his facial expressions. And that's just the beginning. Marcus felt sick. What else? 3 major papers have already called asking about Louis and Nicole's relationship timeline. Specifically about... Louis opened his eyes. He could hear David's voice through the phone speaker. And Marcus? Someone contacted Emma Rodriguez. The car swerved slightly as Marcus's concentration broke.
Emma Rodriguez.
The one person who knew everything. Did she talk? Marcus managed to ask. Not yet. But if someone's looking for her, it means they have a lead. Louis sat up straight. Who's Emma Rodriguez? Marcus and David both went quiet. Marcus. Louis's voice was dangerous now. Who is Emma Rodriguez? She was Nicole's friend back then. A backup dancer. And she was with Nicole when... Marcus couldn't finish the sentence. Louis stared at his manager. When what, Marcus? The rain drummed against the car windows. Traffic moved slowly around them. Normal people going about normal days, while Louis's world threatened to crumble. When Nicole made the hardest decision of her life, Marcus said finally. Lewis was quiet for a long moment. Then he asked the question Marcus had been dreading for 10 years. What really happened in 2014, Marcus? What aren't you telling me? Marcus looked at his friend, his client, the man he'd watched grow from a young driver into a champion. And for the first time in their relationship, he didn't know what to say, because the truth would change everything. And some truths were too dangerous to tell. Sarah Chen's home office in Notting Hill was covered in papers. Photos of Lewis and Nicole from 2014 were spread across her desk. Magazine covers, race photos. Red carpet pictures. They looked happy in every single one. But something wasn't right. Sarah replayed the interview footage for the 10th time. She watched Lewis's face at the exact moment she mentioned Nicole's 2014 regrets. The way his smile died, the flash of pain in his eyes, the 3 seconds of pure, raw emotion before his media training kicked back in. In 15 years of journalism, Sarah had learned to trust her instincts. Right now, they were screaming that this story was bigger than a simple breakup. She opened her laptop and started typing notes. Lewis Hamilton, Nicole Scherzinger timeline. Started dating, on and off relationship. 2014, Lewis wins second championship. 2015, final breakup announced. Nicole's recent interview, regrets about choices made in Sarah leaned back in her chair. The 2014 season had been intense. Lewis was fighting Nico Rosberg for the championship. Every race mattered. The pressure was enormous. What could have happened that year that still affected him so deeply? Her phone buzzed with a text from her producer Tom. Social media is going crazy. Lewis Rechection has 50K tweets already. People want to know what you asked him. Sarah smiled grimly. Sometimes the best stories found you when you weren't looking for them. She opened Google and started searching. Nicole Scherzinger 2014. The results were mostly race photos and red carpet appearances. Nicole at the Monaco Grand Prix, looking gorgeous in designer clothes. Nicole at the British Grand Prix, cheering from the Ferrari garage. They looked like the perfect couple. But Sarah noticed something strange in the timeline. Nicole missed 3 races at the end of the 2014 season. The Brazilian Grand Prix where Lewis clinched his second title, the Abu Dhabi finale. And curiously, she wasn't photographed with Lewis at any of the championship celebrations. Sarah made more notes. Nicole absent from championship celebrations. Why? She searched deeper. Nicole Scherzinger, October 2014. Most results showed her at various events in Los Angeles. Recording studio sessions. A charity gala. Normal celebrity appearances. But then Sarah found something interesting. A small item in a Hollywood gossip blog from October. Pussycat Dolls alumni Nicole Scherzinger was spotted leaving a private medical facility in Beverly Hills, looking distressed. The singer, who is dating F1 champion Lewis Hamilton, declined to comment when approached by photographers. Sarah stared at the screen. A medical facility in October 2014. Looking distressed, she picked up her phone and dialed a number she hadn't called in 2 years. Emma Rodriguez? This is Sarah Chen from BBC Sport. I'm sorry, who? Sarah Chen. I'm a journalist. I'm calling about Nicole Scherzinger. The line went quiet for a moment. I don't talk about Nicole to reporters. Emma. I'm not looking to hurt anyone. But I think there's a story here that needs to be told. Something about... Another pause. Longer this time. What makes you think I know anything about tooth? Sarah took a deep breath. Because I just interviewed Lewis Hamilton. And when I mentioned Nicole's regrets about that year, he looked like someone had shot him. And because I found your name in connection with Nicole during that time period. Where did you find my name? Sarah had done her homework. Old Pussycat Dolls fan sites. You were listed as her personal assistant and backup dancer in 2014. You traveled with her. Emma was quiet for almost a minute. Sarah waited. Good journalists knew when to stay silent. I can't talk about this over the phone. Emma finally said, can you talk about it at all? Maybe, but not on the record, and not about details. I understand. What can you tell me? Emma sighed deeply. Nicole went through something very difficult in 2014. Something that changed her whole life, and Lewis never knew about it. Sarah's pulse quickened. What kind of something? The kind of something that a woman sometimes has to handle alone. The implication hit Sarah. Like a truck. A medical facility. Nicole looking distressed. Something Lewis never knew about. Emma, are you saying? I'm not saying anything specific. But I will say this. Nicole loved Lewis more than anything. And sometimes when you love someone, you make choices to protect them, even if those choices destroy you inside. Sarah's mind was racing. Did she make the right choice? That's not for me to say. But I'll tell you this. Watching Lewis's reaction today on TV broke my heart. Because I've been carrying this secret for 10 years, and I see how much pain both of them are still in. Would you be willing to meet? Just to talk? Emma was quiet again. Then, you seem different from other reporters. Less predatory. I'm not interested in destroying people's lives. I'm interested in truth. Truth can be just as dangerous, sometimes. But living with lies is worse. After a long pause, Emma spoke. There's a coffee shop in West Hollywood. Earth Cafe. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. Pacific time. I'll be wearing a red jacket. How will I recognize you? I'll be the one who looks like she hasn't slept well in 10 years. The line went dead. Sarah stared at her phone. In her gut, she knew she was about to uncover something that would change how people saw Lewis Hamilton and Nicole Scherzinger forever. But she also knew that once she opened this door, there would be no closing it again. She looked at the photos spread across her desk. Lewis and Nicole laughing at the Monaco Grand Prix. Nicole cheering as Lewis crossed the finish line at Silverstone. Two people who seemed to have everything. What could have gone so wrong that they were both still carrying the pain 10 years later? Sarah opened a new document on her laptop and began typing, the Lewis Hamilton story. Initial notes, what really happened in... Outside her window. London was getting dark. Somewhere in the city, Lewis Hamilton was probably trying to too about their interview. And somewhere in Los Angeles, Nicole Scherzinger was maybe wondering if her secrets were finally going to come to light. Sarah had 24 hours to decide if she was really going to pursue this story. But deep down, she already knew the answer. Some stories chose you. And this one had just chosen her. Monaco. May. The champagne bubbles tickled Lewis's nose as he raised the bottle high above his head. The crowd at the Monte Carlo casino roared with approval. Winning the Monaco Grand Prix was special. But winning it while leading the championship felt magical. To the most beautiful woman in Monte Carlo, Lewis shouted, pulling Nicole close to him. Nicole Scherzinger laughed, her dark hair catching the golden light of the casino chandeliers. She wore a stunning black dress that made every head turn when they walked in. But Lewis only had eyes for her. You're crazy, she said, kissing his cheek. And you're getting champagne everywhere. I don't care. I'm on top of the world right now. They were surrounded by friends, team members, and celebrities who had come to Monaco for the race weekend. The party was loud and joyful. Everyone wanted to celebrate with the race winner. But in the middle of all the noise, Lewis and Nicole felt like they were alone together. I'm so proud of you, Nicole whispered in his ear. You drove like a champion today. I drove like a man in love, Lewis replied. You're my good luck charm. They found a quiet corner of the casino, away from the cameras and crowds. The slot machines made soft chiming sounds in the background. Outside the windows, Monaco's harbor sparkled with yacht lights. Lewis, can I tell you something? Nicole's voice was softer now, more serious. Anything. I love watching you race. But sometimes I worry about how much pressure you put on yourself. Lewis took her hands in his. They were warm and soft, a contrast to his calloused racing gloves. The pressure makes me better. It's what champions do. I know. But I see how stressed you get when things don't go perfectly. Like when the car has problems or when Nico beats you. Lewis's face darkened slightly. Nico Rosberg, his Mercedes teammate, was currently second in the championship. The competition between them was getting more intense every race. Nico's not gonna beat me this year. I won't let him. Nicole studied his face. What if he does? What if you don't win the championship? I will win it. I have to. But what if you don't? Lewis was quiet for a moment. The question seemed to confuse him. I don't think about that possibility, he said finally. Nicole squeezed his hands. Maybe you should. Maybe it would take some pressure off. Nicole, I love you for worrying about me. But this is what I do. This is who I am. You're more than just a racing driver, Lewis. You're kind and funny and creative. You make music. You care about important causes. Racing isn't everything. Lewis smiled and kissed her forehead. It is to me. At least right now. I need this championship. Why do you need it so much? Because. Lewis paused, thinking. Because I want to prove I belong here. That I'm not just lucky. That I'm truly one of the greatest. Nicole nodded, but something in her eyes looked sad. I just want you to know that I love you no matter what happens. Championship or no championship. I know that. And I love you too. More than anything. They kissed as fireworks exploded over Monaco Harbor. It was a perfect moment in what felt like a perfect life. Lewis's phone rang, interrupting the kiss. He looked at the screen and frowned. It's my trainer. I should take this. At 11 p.m.? He's probably calling about tomorrow's training schedule. Lewis stepped away to answer the phone. Nicole watched him walk toward the casino entrance, already focused on the next race, the next challenge. A woman approached Nicole while Lewis was gone. She was older, well-dressed, with sharp eyes. You must be Nicole. I'm Patricia Manning from Mercedes Marketing. Oh, hello. Congratulations on tonight. Lewis looked very happy up there. He deserves it. He worked so hard for this win. Patricia smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Can I give you some friendly advice? Nicole felt suddenly uncomfortable. What kind of advice? This championship battle is going to get very intense. The pressure on Lewis will be enormous. The media attention, the expectations. I know that. Do you? Because I've seen what this kind of pressure can do to relationships. It destroys them. Nicole stared at the woman. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that if you really love Lewis, you'll think carefully about anything that might distract him from winning. Anything at all. Before Nicole could respond, Patricia melted back into the crowd, leaving Nicole alone and confused. Lewis returned a few minutes later, looking stressed. Everything okay? Nicole asked. Yeah, just schedule stuff. We need to leave early tomorrow for simulator work in England, but we were going to spend the day together. See the sights? Maybe go to that restaurant you mentioned. Lewis looked genuinely sorry. I know, baby, but the championship fight is heating up. Every advantage matters. Nicole forced a smile. Of course. Racing comes first. You understand, right? This is temporary. Once I win the championship, we'll have all the time in the world. I understand. But as they walked back through the casino together, Nicole felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. Patricia's words echoed in her mind, anything that might distract him from winning. What if she became a distraction? What if her presence, her needs, her love became the thing that cost Lewis his championship? The thought was too terrible to consider. But late that night, as Lewis slept beside her in their Monaco hotel room, Nicole stared at the ceiling and wondered if love was always supposed to feel so much like sacrifice. Outside their window, the Mediterranean waves crashed against the rocks. The sound was peaceful. But Nicole couldn't sleep. Something had changed tonight. Some innocence had been lost in Patricia's warning and Lewis's single-minded focus on winning. Nicole didn't know it yet, but in 5 months, she would face an impossible choice. And the memory of this perfect night in Monaco would make that choice even more heartbreaking. Because she would realize that sometimes loving someone meant letting them go, even if it destroyed you in the process. Los Angeles. Earth Cafe. West Hollywood. Emma Rodriguez sat in the corner booth wearing a red jacket just as she had promised. At 35, she still looked like she could dance back up for any pop star, but her eyes carried the weight of someone who had seen too much. Sarah spotted her immediately. Even through the laptop screen, she could see the tension in Emma's shoulders. Emma, I'm Sarah Chen. Thank you for agreeing to meet. Emma looked around the busy coffee shop nervously. I still don't know why I'm doing this. Sarah sat down across from her, keeping her recorder in her bag. This conversation needed to feel safe, not like an interrogation, because secrets have a way of eating people alive. Sarah said gently, and I think you've been carrying a heavy one. Emma's laugh was bitter. You have no idea. A waitress brought Emma her third coffee of the day. Her hands shook slightly as she lifted the cup. Can you tell me about your relationship with Nicole? Sarah asked. Nicole saved my life. Literally. Emma's voice was soft but steady. I was a mess in 2010. Drugs, bad relationships, no money. The Pussycat Dolls had broken up and I was struggling. Nicole gave me a job as her personal assistant. She didn't have to do that. So you were close. Like sisters. I traveled everywhere with her. I knew everything about her life, her relationships, her fears. Sarah leaned forward slightly. Including her relationship with Louis. Emma's face changed. The openness disappeared, replaced by pain. Especially that. What can you tell me about Emma was quiet for a long moment. She stared out the window at the busy West Hollywood street. People walking by with shopping bags and cell phones. Living normal lives without impossible secrets. 2014 was supposed to be Nicole's year too. Emma said finally. She had record deals in the works. Solo career opportunities. She was so talented. Sarah, people don't realize how gifted she really was. But something changed. Everything changed. Emma's voice cracked slightly. In one day, her whole world fell apart. Sarah waited. Good journalists knew when to stay silent. It was October 15, 2014. Louis was in Russia for a race. The championship fight with Nico was getting crazy. Louis was stressed all the time, calling Nicole at weird hours, obsessing over every detail. Emma took a shaky sip of her coffee. Nicole had been feeling sick for a few weeks. Tired, nauseous. We joked that she was working too hard. But then she missed her period. Sarah's heart started beating faster. This was it. The secret that had haunted both Louis and Nicole for 10 years. She took 3 pregnancy tests. All positive. The words hung in the air between them. Around them, the coffee shop buzzed with normal conversations about work and weekend plans. But at their corner table, time seemed frozen. How did she react? Sarah asked gently. Emma's eyes filled with tears. She was terrified, and excited, and confused, all at the same time. She kept saying, "This changes everything." Did she tell Louis? Emma shook her head. That's the part that still kills me. She wanted to. She picked up the phone a dozen times. But every time she stopped herself. Why? Because Louis was falling apart from the championship pressure. He was having panic attacks before races. He couldn't sleep. His whole future, his legacy, everything depended on those last few races. Sarah began to understand the impossible position Nicole had found herself in. She was protecting him. She was trying to... Nicole knew that if she told Louis she was pregnant, he would drop everything. He would fly home, miss races, lose focus completely. She couldn't do that to him. Emma wiped tears from her cheeks with a napkin. But keeping it secret was destroying her. She would call me crying at 3 a.m. She didn't know what to do. What did you tell her? I told her she had to tell him. That they would figure it out together. But Nicole was convinced that if Louis lost the championship because of her pregnancy, he would resent her forever. Sarah felt sick thinking about the choice Nicole had faced. Tell the man she loved and potentially destroy his dreams. Or carry the burden alone. What happened next? Emma closed her eyes, as if she couldn't bear to remember. She made an appointment. At a private clinic in Beverly Hills. October 22nd. Sarah's research had been right. The medical facility. Nicole looking distressed. I drove her there. Emma continued. She cried the whole way. She kept saying he'll never forgive me for this. But he'll never forgive me for ruining his championship either. The coffee shop seemed to grow quieter around them. Sarah realized she was witnessing the confession of a secret that had shaped 2 people's entire lives. She went through with it. Emma nodded, tears flowing freely now. I held her hand during the procedure. It was the hardest thing I've ever watched someone go through. She loved Louis so much, and she loved that baby already. But she thought she was choosing Louis's happiness over her own. And Louis never knew.
Never.
He was in Austin that weekend for the US Grand Prix. He called Nicole after qualifying, all excited about pole position. She talked to him like nothing had happened. I watched her fake happiness while her heart was breaking. Sarah felt tears in her own eyes. How did she handle it after? She didn't, not really. She pretended everything was fine, but I could see her dying inside. Every race Louis won after that. She felt guilty. When he won the championship in Abu Dhabi, she couldn't even celebrate properly. Is that why they broke up? Emma nodded. Nicole couldn't handle the secret anymore. Every time Louis talked about their future, about marriage, about kids someday, She would fall apart inside. She knew she had to tell him the truth, but she was terrified he would hate her for the choice she made. So she ended the relationship instead. She convinced herself it was better that way. That Louis could find someone who wouldn't have kept such a huge secret from him. Someone who wouldn't have made such an impossible choice. Sarah sat back in her chair, overwhelmed by the tragedy of it all. Emma, does Nicole know about Louis's reaction yesterday? About the interview? Emma pulled out her phone and showed Sarah a text message. Did you see Louis on TV today? He looked like someone broke his heart all over again. I can't stop crying. She's been watching him for 10 years, wondering if she made the right choice. And seeing him hurt yesterday brought it all back. Sarah looked at this woman who had carried such a heavy secret for so long. Why are you telling me this now? Emma wiped her eyes and looked directly at Sarah. Because they're both still in pain. Because Nicole thinks Louis hates her for leaving, and Louis thinks Nicole left because she didn't love him enough. Neither of them knows the truth about what the other sacrificed. And you think the truth would help them? I think 10 years of wondering and hurting is enough. Maybe it's time for them both to understand what really happened. Emma stood up, leaving money on the table for her coffee. But Sarah, if you write this story, please remember that Nicole thought she was protecting the man she loved. She gave up everything, her own happiness, their relationship, even the chance to be a mother, because she thought it was what Louis needed. I'll remember that. Emma walked toward the door, then turned back one final time. And please remember that Louis never got the chance to make his own choice. He never knew there was a choice to make. After Emma left, Sarah sat alone in the coffee shop for another hour. The weight of what she had learned pressed down on her like a physical force. Nicole Scherzinger hadn't left Louis Hamilton because she didn't love him. She had left him because she loved him so much that she was willing to sacrifice everything to protect his dreams. Even their unborn child. Even her own happiness. Even him. Stevenage, Hertfordshire. The Hamilton family home. Louis sat in his old bedroom, staring at the racing posters on the walls. Michael Schumacher in his red Ferrari. Ayrton Senna at Monaco. Dreams from when he was just a kid with big hopes and a small budget. His father Anthony found him there at 6 in the evening, still wearing the same clothes from the BBC interview that morning. Son, you've been sitting here for 2 hours. Louis looked up at his dad. Anthony Hamilton had aged well, but Louis could see new worry lines around his eyes today. I keep thinking about what Marcus said, about Emma Rodriguez, about secrets. Anthony sat down on the old desk chair. The same chair where he used to help Louis with homework between karting practice sessions. You want to talk about it? I don't know where to start, Dad. Louis's voice sounded young again. Like the scared boy who used to worry he wasn't good enough for Formula One. Start with what's eating you up inside. Louis was quiet for a moment. Outside his window, Stevenage looked the same as it always had. Normal families in normal houses living normal lives. I never got closure with Nicole. When she left, I kept waiting for a real explanation. Something that made sense. What did she tell you at the time? That we wanted different things. That the racing lifestyle was too much for her. Generic breakup stuff. Anthony nodded slowly. But you didn't believe it. How could I? Dad, you saw us together. At races, at family dinners. She loved me. I know she did. Love isn't always enough, Louis. But it was for us. At least I thought it was. Louis stood up and walked to his old dresser. There was still a framed photo there from 2014. Him and Nicole at the Monaco Grand Prix. Both laughing at something off camera. I keep wondering what I did wrong. Was I too focused on racing? Too selfish? Too demanding? Anthony watched his son carefully. In 39 years, he had never seen Louis look so lost. You were fighting for a championship. That takes everything you have. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe I didn't have anything left for her. Louis, sit down. Let me tell you something I've never told you. Louis turned around, surprised by his father's serious tone. I always suspected there was more to Nicole leaving than what she said. What do you mean? The timing was strange. Right after you won the championship. When everything should have been perfect. Anthony leaned forward in his chair. And the way she looked at your championship celebration. I was watching her during the ceremony in Abu Dhabi. She looked proud of you, but also broken. Like she was happy and sad at the same time. Louis felt a chill run down his spine. You notice that? A father notices things about the people who matter to his son. Nicole mattered to you more than any woman ever had. She still does. The admission hung in the air between them. After 10 years, Louis had finally said it out loud. I know, son. That's why this is eating you alive. Louis sat back down on his old bed. The mattress creaked the same way it had when he was 16 and dreaming of racing glory. Dad, what if I could have changed things? What if there was something happening that I could have helped with? Like what? I don't know. That's the problem. Marcus and Emma Rodriguez know something I don't. Something about 2014 that everyone has been protecting me from. Anthony was quiet for a moment. Then he asked the question Louis had been avoiding. Do you want to know the truth? Even if it's something that might hurt? Louis looked at his father. This man who had sacrificed everything to give his son a chance at racing. Who had worked 3 jobs to pay for karting. Who had never lied to him about anything important. I think I need to know. I can't keep living with these questions. Then maybe it's time to stop letting other people decide what you can handle. What do you mean? Marcus has been protecting you for 12 years. It's his job. But sometimes protection becomes a prison. Louis understood. Marcus meant well, but he had been treating Louis like someone who couldn't handle difficult truths. I'm not a kid anymore, am I? No, you're not. You're a grown man who deserves to know what happened in his own life. Louis pulled out his phone and stared at it for a long moment. I could call her, Nicole. Just ask her directly. You could. But are you ready for whatever she might tell you?
I don't know, but I'm tired of wondering. I'm tired of making up stories in my head about why she left.
Anthony stood up and put his hand on Louis's shoulder. Son, whatever happened 10 years ago, it doesn't change who you are now. You're a champion. You're a good man. And you deserve to be happy. What if the truth changes everything? What if it sets you free? Louis looked at the photo on his dresser again. 2 people in love, celebrating a racing victory, unaware that their world was about to fall apart. Dad, can I ask you something personal? Anything. Do you think Mom ever kept secrets from you? Important ones? Anthony's face grew thoughtful. Louis's parents had divorced when he was young, but they had found peace with each other over the years. Your mother did what she thought was best at the time. Sometimes people keep secrets because they're trying to protect the people they love, even if those secrets hurt everyone in the long run. Especially then, the bigger the love, the bigger the sacrifice someone might make. Louis felt tears in his eyes for the first time since the interview that morning. What if Nicole was protecting me from something? What if her leaving wasn't about not loving me, but about loving me too much? Anthony pulled his son into a hug. The same kind of hug he used to give after bad races when Louis was young and disappointed. Then you need to find out what she was protecting you from. And you need to tell her that she didn't have to carry that burden alone. Louis held on to his father for a long moment. Outside, the sun was setting over Stevenage. The same sunset he had watched as a boy, dreaming of racing glory and believing that love would always be simple. But love wasn't simple. Sometimes it was complicated and painful and required impossible choices. And sometimes the people you loved most were the ones who hurt you while trying to save you. Louis knew what he had to do. He had to find out the truth about 20, even if that truth destroyed everything he thought he knew about the woman he had never stopped loving. London, various locations. Sarah Chen hadn't slept well after her video call with Emma Rodriguez. The weight of Nicole's secret pressed on her mind like a stone. She sat in a cafe near King's Cross Station, spreading documents across a small table. Emma's story had given her the missing piece. But Sarah needed proof. Real evidence that would stand up to scrutiny. She opened her laptop and searched for flight records from October 2014. Public information was limited, but she found something interesting. Lewis Hamilton had flown from London to Austin on October 20th for the US Grand Prix weekend. Nicole's procedure had been on October 22nd. While Lewis was qualifying in Texas, Nicole was making the hardest decision of her life in Beverly Hills. Sarah made notes. Lewis, in Austin October 24. Nicole, in LA. Same dates. He never knew. Her phone buzzed with a text from her research assistant, Jake. Found something. Medical privacy laws make it hard, but there's a paper trail if you know where to look. Sarah called him immediately. What did you find? Beverly Hills Medical Center had a data leak in 2019. Some patient information got online briefly before being taken down. Sarah's pulse quickened. And Nicole Scherzinger was treated there on October 22, 2014. Listed as outpatient surgical procedure. That's all I could find before the records were scrubbed. Sarah felt sick and excited at the same time. Emma's story was checking out. Jake, this stays between us for now, of course. But Sarah, if this story is what I think it is, it's going to explode when it comes out. Sarah hung up and walked toward the British Library. She needed to research more about the 2014 F1 season. The timeline was crucial. Inside the library's newspaper archives, she pulled up sports pages from October and November 2014. The headlines told a clear story. Hamilton under pressure as championship lead shrinks. Rosberg closes gap with 3 races remaining. Hamilton struggles with mental pressure. One article from October 25 caught her attention. It was from a German sports magazine. Sources close to the Mercedes team report that Lewis Hamilton has been struggling with anxiety attacks before races. The pressure of the championship fight with teammate Nico Rosberg appears to be taking a mental toll on the British driver. Sarah sat back in her chair. The timing was perfect and terrible. Nicole had been facing her impossible choice during the exact weeks when Lewis was most vulnerable to pressure. She found more articles from that period. Hamilton's team concerned about driver's mental state, championship pressure affecting Hamilton's sleep and appetite. Nicole would have seen these reports. She would have known that Lewis was already cracking under the strain. Sarah's phone rang. It was her editor. Sarah, I need an update on the Hamilton story. Social media is still buzzing about that interview. I'm still investigating. What's your angle? Sarah hesitated. She could feel herself at a crossroads. Once she told her editor about Nicole's secret, there would be no stopping the story. It's complicated. I need more time. You have 24 hours. If there's no story here, we move on. The line went dead. Sarah stared at her phone. 24 hours to decide whether to reveal the most private moment of 2 people's lives. She left the library and walked through Russell Square. The autumn air was cold and sharp. London felt different when you were carrying someone else's secrets. Her phone buzzed with another text from Jake. Found in Nicole's travel records. Private jet from LA to London on November 20, day after Lewis won the championship in Brazil. Sarah stopped walking. November 2nd. Nicole had flown to London right after Lewis won his 2nd title. But according to public reports, she hadn't attended his championship celebration. Why fly to London and then avoid the victory party? Sarah called Emma Rodriguez. Emma, it's Sarah Chen. I have a question. I was wondering when you'd call back. Did Nicole go to Lewis after the championship was decided? After Brazil? Emma was quiet for a moment. She flew to London planning to tell him everything. About the pregnancy. About her choice. About why she really made it. What happened? She couldn't do it. She saw him celebrating with the team, so happy and relieved. She realized that telling him would destroy that happiness forever. So she left without saying anything. She checked into a hotel near Heathrow and cried for 3 days. Then she flew back to LA and started planning how to end their relationship. Sarah felt the full tragedy of it now. Nicole had tried to confess, but couldn't bear to hurt Lewis even then. Emma, why didn't she tell him years later? After the pain of the breakup had faded? Because the longer she waited, the harder it became. How do you tell someone you love that you made a choice like that, without them? How do you explain 10 years of lies? Sarah understood. Some secrets became too big to tell. She walked back toward her office, but stopped at a small church near Bloomsbury. She wasn't religious, but she needed quiet to think. Inside the church, elderly tourists whispered about stained glass windows. Sarah sat in a back pew and considered her choices. She could write the story and reveal the truth. It would be the biggest sports story of the year. 2 celebrities, a secret pregnancy, an impossible choice. The public would devour it, but it would also destroy 2 people who had already suffered enough. Or she could bury the story. Protect Nicole's privacy and Lewis's ignorance. Let them continue living with their separate versions of the truth. But Emma was right. They were both still in pain, still wondering, still carrying guilt and confusion after 10 years. Sarah's phone buzzed with a message from her editor. Whatever this story is, it better be worth the wait. The network is asking question. Sarah closed her eyes and thought about Lewis's face during the interview. The raw pain when she mentioned Nicole's regrets. He was still hurting. And somewhere in Los Angeles, Nicole was probably hurting too. Maybe the truth would set them both free. Or maybe it would destroy them completely. Sarah had 18 hours to decide which risk was worth taking. But first, she needed to talk to one more person. She needed to talk to Lewis Hamilton himself. Because if she was going to reveal the most painful secret of his life, he deserved to hear it from her first. London. Lewis's apartment. Evening. Lewis stared at his phone for 20 minutes before dialing. Nicole's number was still saved in his contacts under N, a heart emoji he had never been able to delete. His thumb hovered over the call button. 10 years of silence. 10 years of wondering. His conversation with his father had given him courage, but now that courage was fading fast. What would he even say? Hello, Nicole, I still love you and I need to know why you really left me. Lewis walked to his kitchen window. London glittered below him, millions of people living their lives without the weight of unanswered questions. He pressed call before he could change his mind. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Maybe she wouldn't answer. Maybe that would be easier. Hello? Nicole's voice hit him like a physical force. Soft, cautious, with that slight American accent she had developed from living in Los Angeles. Nicole, it's Lewis. Silence. Long enough that Lewis wondered if the call had dropped. Lewis? Why are you calling? Her voice sounded different. Older. More careful. I needed to talk to you. About what? Lewis could hear traffic in the background on her end. She was probably driving, still doing normal things while his world was falling apart. About us. About 2014. About why you really left. Another long pause. Lewis, that was a long time ago. I don't think… Nicole, please. I had an interview yesterday and when the journalist asked about you, I completely fell apart on live television. After 10 years, I'm still falling apart when someone mentions your name. He heard her intake of breath. You fell apart? I couldn't even finish a sentence. Whatever happened between us, whatever I did wrong, it's still eating me alive. You didn't do anything wrong. Nicole's voice was barely a whisper now. Then why did you leave? The real reason, not the generic breakup speech you gave me. Lewis could hear her crying now. Soft, trying to hide it tears. Lewis, you don't understand. It's not that simple. Then make me understand. Please. I've spent 10 years wondering if I was too selfish, too focused on racing, too demanding. I need to know what I did that made you stop loving me. Stop loving you? Nicole's voice broke completely. Lewis, I never stopped loving you, not for a single day in 10 years. Now Lewis was the one who couldn't speak. He gripped the phone so hard his knuckles went white. Then why? He managed to say. Because sometimes loving someone means making impossible choices. Because sometimes you have to hurt someone to save them from something worse. What are you talking about? Save me from what? Nicole was crying harder now. Lewis could hear her trying to pull over, the sound of a car door opening and closing. I can't do this over the phone. I can't explain this in a conversation. Nicole, please. I'm begging you. What happened in 2014 that I don't know about? How do you know something happened in 20… Lewis felt his heart racing. Because everyone around me is protecting me from some secret. Marcus won't tell me. There's a journalist investigating our relationship. Someone named Emma Rodriguez has been mentioned. He heard Nicole gasp. Emma? Someone contacted Emma? You know her? Lewis? Nicole's voice was shaking. Emma was my best friend back then. She was the only person who knew. Knew what? The silence stretched between them. Lewis could feel that they were right at the edge of something huge. Something that would change everything. Nicole, please. I can't live with not knowing anymore. Whatever it is, I can handle it. No, you can't. That's why I never told you. I'm not the same person I was 10 years ago. I'm stronger now. I can handle whatever truth you're hiding. Nicole was quiet for so long that Lewis thought she had hung up. Nicole? Are you still there? I'm here. Lewis, if I tell you the truth, it will change how you see everything. Our relationship, our breakup, the last 10 years of your life. It already has changed. Yesterday's interview changed everything for me. I know something happened that I wasn't told about. I need to know what it was. Lewis could hear Nicole taking deep, shaky breaths. I was trying to protect you. I thought I was doing the right thing. Protect me from what? From having to choose between me and your championship. From having to make an impossible decision that would have destroyed your career or broken your heart. Lewis felt cold suddenly. What kind of decision? Another long pause. When Nicole spoke again, her voice was barely audible. The kind of decision that no 29-year-old man should have to make in the middle of a championship fight. Nicole, you're scaring me. Just tell me what happened. I can't. Not like this. Not over the phone while you're in London and I'm sitting in a parking lot in Los Angeles crying my eyes out. Lewis felt desperate. They were so close to the truth. Then I'll come to LA. I'll get on a plane tonight. Lewis, no, you have Ferrari commitments. You have a life. You can't just drop everything for ancient history. Ancient history? Nicole, you just told me you never stopped loving me. That's not ancient history. That's the most important thing anyone has said to me in 10 years. Nicole was crying again. I shouldn't have said that. Why not? It's the truth, isn't it? The truth doesn't matter anymore. Too much has happened. Too much time has passed. It matters to me. You matter to me. You've always mattered to me. Lewis heard car doors slamming in the background on Nicole's end. Normal people going about their normal lives while two people tried to rebuild something that had been broken for a decade. Lewis, I need you to understand something. What I'm hiding from you. It's not just about us. It's about choices I made that affected other people. Innocent people who couldn't make their own choices. Lewis felt a chill run down his spine. What do you mean, other people? I mean, Nicole's voice broke again. I mean that sometimes when you love someone, you make decisions for them, even when those decisions destroy you. Nicole, please. You're talking in riddles. Just tell me what happened. I sacrificed something. Something precious. Something that could have been beautiful. I sacrificed it because I thought it was what you needed to achieve your dreams. Lewis felt like the world was spinning around him. What did you sacrifice? The line went quiet, except for the sound of Nicole crying. Our future, she whispered. I sacrificed our future because I thought it was the only way to save yours. And then the line went dead. Lewis stared at his phone. Nicole's words echoing in his mind. I sacrificed our future because I thought it was the only way to save yours. What did that mean? What future had they lost? Lewis tried calling back, but Nicole's phone went straight to voicemail. He was more confused and desperate than ever. But now he knew one thing for certain. Nicole Scherzinger had made some kind of devastating choice in 2014, thinking she was protecting him. And whatever that choice was, they were both still paying for it 10 years later. London. Beverly Hills Medical Center. Flashback to October 20. Nicole sat in the sterile waiting room, her hands shaking as she filled out paperwork. The forms asked for emergency contact information. She wrote Emma Rodriguez instead of Lewis Hamilton. How could she write his name when she was about to make a decision that would change everything without his knowledge? Nicole Scherzinger. The nurse's voice was gentle. Nicole stood on unsteady legs. Emma took her hand. You don't have to do this, Emma whispered. We can call Lewis right now. He would understand. No. Nicole's voice was firm despite her tears. He's qualifying in Austin tomorrow. The championship fight with Nico is too close. If I tell him now, he'll lose focus. He'll lose everything he's worked for. They walked down a quiet hallway. Nicole thought about Lewis, probably reviewing race data at the Circuit of the Americas, completely unaware that his world was about to change forever. Or rather, that it would stay the same, because she was about to make sure it did. Present day, Sarah Chen's office, London. Sarah stared at her computer screen. The cursor blinked in the empty document, waiting for her to start writing the story that would destroy two people's privacy forever. Her phone rang. Marcus Webb. Miss Chen, I understand you've been asking questions about Lewis and Nicole. I'm a journalist, Mr. Webb. It's my job to ask questions. Some questions shouldn't be asked. Some stories shouldn't be told. Sarah felt her investigative instincts sharpen. Are you threatening me? I'm asking you to consider the human cost of whatever story you're planning to write. The human cost of truth, or the human cost of continuing to live with lies. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Miss Chen, there are some secrets that were meant to protect people. not hurt them. Then maybe it's time those people got to choose for themselves what they can handle. The line went dead. Sarah's editor appeared at her desk 5 minutes later. Time's up. What's the story? Sarah looked at him. I need to make one more call first. Beverly Hills Medical Center. October 22 through 14 continued flashback. The doctor was kind but professional. She explained the procedure, the risks, the recovery time. Nicole nodded at everything, but her mind was thousands of miles away. In Texas, Lewis was probably having dinner with the team, discussing strategy for tomorrow's race. He had no idea that the woman he loved was sitting in a medical facility, about to make the hardest decision of her life. Are you certain this is what you want? The doctor asked. Nicole almost said no. Almost asked to use the phone to call Lewis. Almost decided that love was more important than championships. But then she thought about the pressure Lewis was under. The anxiety attacks Marcus had mentioned. The way Lewis obsessed over every detail, every advantage Nico might have. A pregnancy announcement now would destroy his focus completely. He would want to fly home immediately. He would miss races, lose points, hand the championship to Nico. And Lewis would spend the rest of his life wondering if he could have been a champion if Nicole had waited just 2 months to tell him. I'm certain, she whispered. Emma squeezed her hand as they wheeled her into the procedure room. I love you, Lewis, Nicole whispered to the empty air. I love you enough to let you hate me for leaving rather than hate me for costing you your dreams. Present day. Lewis's apartment. Lewis couldn't stop thinking about Nicole's words. I sacrificed our future because I thought it was the only way to save yours. What future? What had she given up? His phone rang. Sarah Chen. Mr. Hamilton, this is Sarah Chen from BBC Sport. We need to talk. I don't want to do any more interviews. This isn't about an interview. This is about Nicole Scherzinger and what really happened. Lewis felt his blood turn cold. What do you know about? I know about October 22nd. I know about the Beverly Hills Medical Center. I know about the choice Nicole made while you were in Austin. Lewis sat down heavily on his sofa. I don't know what you're talking about. Mr. Hamilton, I've spoken to Emma Rodriguez. I have medical records, travel documents, and testimonies. I know the truth about why Nicole really left you. Then tell me. Lewis's voice was barely a whisper. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Not over the phone. Can you meet me? This is something you need to hear in person. Where? Hyde Park. Speaker's Corner. 1 hour. Hyde Park. 1 hour later, Lewis saw Sarah sitting on a bench near the famous corner where people had been speaking their truths for over 150 years. How fitting. Ms. Chen. Thank you for coming. Please sit down. Lewis remained standing. Just tell me. Whatever you know, just tell me. Sarah looked up at him. In the fading London light, Lewis looked younger and more vulnerable than he had during their interview. Lewis. In October 2014, Nicole discovered she was pregnant. The words hit Lewis like a physical blow. He staggered backward, then sat down hard on the bench. Pregnant? She found out on October 15th. You were preparing for the US Grand Prix, in the middle of your championship fight with Nico. Lewis's mind reeled. We were going to have a baby? Nicole was terrified of how the news would affect you. She knew you were struggling with anxiety, with the pressure of the championship fight. So what did she do? Sarah's voice was gentle but clear. She made an appointment at a private clinic in Beverly Hills, October 22nd, 2014. The same day you were qualifying in Austin. Lewis understood immediately. The full, devastating truth crashed over him like a wave. She had an abortion. Emma Rodriguez drove her there. Emma held her hand during the procedure. Nicole made the decision alone because she believed telling you would destroy your championship chances. Lewis doubled over on the bench, his head in his hands. 10 years of wondering, and the truth was worse than anything he could have imagined. Not because Nicole had made the choice, but because she had made it alone. She never told me. She never gave me the chance to choose. She thought she was protecting you. She thought she was saving your career. My career? Lewis looked up, his eyes wet with tears. She thought my career was more important than our child? She thought your happiness was more important than hers. She was willing to sacrifice everything. The pregnancy, your relationship, her own emotional well-being, to make sure you achieved your dreams. Lewis stood up and walked a few steps away, trying to process what he had learned. That's why she left me. Not because she didn't love me, but because she couldn't live with what she had done. She couldn't handle the guilt and the secret. Every time you talked about your future together, about marriage, about having kids someday, it broke her heart all over again. Lewis turned back to Sarah. Why are you telling me this? Why now? Because Emma Rodriguez contacted me after your interview yesterday. She's been carrying this secret for 10 years, watching both of you suffer. She thinks it's time you both knew the truth. Lewis felt empty and full at the same time. Empty of the illusions he had carried for a decade, full of a grief he couldn't even name. We could have figured it out together. We could have made the choice together. Nicole didn't think so. She was convinced that if you knew, you would choose the baby over the championship, and then resent her forever for costing you your dreams. Lewis laughed bitterly. So instead, she made the choice for both of us, and I've resented her absence for 10 years. Lewis, I need to ask you something. I have enough evidence to write this story. It would be the biggest sports story of the year. But I wanted you to hear it from me first. Lewis looked at Sarah. You want my permission to destroy what's left of our privacy? I want to know if you think the truth should be told. If it would help both of you to stop living with secrets and assumptions. Lewis was quiet for a long time. Around them, London continued its evening rhythm. People walking dogs, couples holding hands, families heading home for dinner. Normal people living normal lives without impossible choices. Nicole sacrificed everything to protect me, Lewis said finally. The least I can do is protect her now. He looked directly at Sarah. Don't publish the story. Some truths are too private, too painful to share with the world. Sarah nodded slowly. I understand. But Lewis, there's one more thing you need to consider. What? Nicole doesn't know that you know. She's probably sitting in Los Angeles right now, still carrying this guilt alone, still thinking you hate her for leaving without explanation. Lewis closed his eyes. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that maybe it's time for both of you to stop protecting each other and start healing together. Lewis opened his eyes and looked at the woman who had just changed his life forever. Miss Chen, thank you for telling me the truth. And thank you for letting me decide what to do with it. What are you going to do? Lewis stood up from the bench, feeling older and sadder but somehow lighter than he had in 10 years. I'm going to Los Angeles. And I'm going to tell the woman I love that she never had to carry this burden alone. Silverstone Circuit. British Grand Prix weekend. 3 days later. The Silverstone paddock buzzed with its usual energy. Mechanics wheeled tires, journalists chased drivers with microphones, and fans pressed against barriers hoping for autographs. Lewis walked through it all like a man in a dream. Everything looked the same, but everything had changed. Marcus fell into step beside him as they headed toward the Ferrari hospitality unit. You've been quiet since Wednesday. Everything okay? Lewis stopped walking and turned to face his manager. Marcus, how long have you known? Known about Nicole? About 2014. About what really happened? Marcus's face went pale. Lewis, I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me. Not anymore. Sarah Chen told me everything. About the pregnancy. About Nicole's choice. About how everyone around me decided I couldn't handle the truth. Marcus looked around nervously. Other team members were walking past, heading to meetings and briefings. We can't talk about this here. When then? It's been 10 years, Marcus. When exactly were you planning to tell me that I lost a child I never knew existed? Marcus grabbed Lewis's arm and steered him toward a quiet corner behind the Ferrari trucks. Lewis, we were trying to protect you. From what? From being able to make my own decisions about my own life? From falling apart during the most important season of your career? You were already struggling with the pressure. If you had known about the pregnancy, I would have handled it. Nicole and I would have figured it out together. Marcus shook his head. You don't know that. The championship fight with Nico was destroying you. Adding pregnancy stress on top of that could have broken you completely. Lewis felt anger rising in his chest. So you all decided for me. Nicole, you, probably others I don't even know about. We made the best decision we could with the information we had. The best decision would have been to trust me, to let me be part of the choice. Before Marcus could respond, a young journalist approached them. Lewis, can we get a quick word about this weekend's race? Lewis looked at the reporter. then back at Marcus. Later, we're not done talking. Ferrari Hospitality, Media Center. The press conference room was packed. Lewis sat at the table next to his Ferrari teammate, facing dozens of cameras and reporters. The questions started normally. Car setup, track conditions, championship hopes. Then Sarah Chen raised her hand. Lewis, you seemed emotional during our BBC interview earlier this week. Some fans are concerned about your well-being. How do you respond to that? Lewis looked directly at Sarah. She had kept her word about not publishing the story, but she was giving him a chance to address it publicly on his own terms. Sometimes in life, you learn things that change how you see the past. That can be emotional, yes. What kind of things? Another journalist asked. Lewis was quiet for a moment. He could feel Marcus tensing behind the cameras, probably terrified about what Lewis might say. I've learned that people sometimes make sacrifices for you without telling you, that they carry burdens they think are too heavy for you to share. Are you talking about anyone specific? The question came from a reporter Lewis didn't recognize. I'm talking about realizing that love isn't always about being together. Sometimes it's about making impossible choices to protect someone else's dreams. Sarah leaned forward slightly. Do you wish you had known about these sacrifices at the time? Lewis met her eyes. I wish the people I cared about had trusted me enough to let me help carry their burdens. Nobody should have to make life-changing decisions alone. The room was unusually quiet. The other journalists sensed they were witnessing something deeper than typical press conference talk, but they didn't know what. Lewis, Sarah said carefully, what would you say to someone who made a difficult choice thinking they were protecting you? Lewis's voice was soft but clear. I would say that I understood their intentions, that I'm grateful for their love, even if I wish they had chosen differently, and that it's never too late to heal together instead of hurting apart. The Ferrari press officer stepped forward. I think that's enough personal questions for today. Let's focus on this weekend's racing. But Lewis wasn't done. Actually, I have something else to say. The room went completely silent. To anyone who's been carrying guilt or secrets thinking they were protecting me, thank you for your love, but I'm strong enough to handle the truth. I always was. Later. Lewis's driver room. Lewis sat alone in his small driver room, staring at his phone. Nicole's contact was still open, her number still saved under N. He had typed and deleted a dozen messages. I know about 2014. We need to talk. I forgive you. I love you. None of them felt right. How do you text someone about something so profound? There was a knock on his door. Come in. Sarah Chen stood in the doorway. I hope I'm not intruding. How did you get back here? Journalist credentials open a lot of doors. I wanted to thank you for what you said in the press conference. I meant every word. I know you did. That's why I want to give you something. Sarah handed him a piece of paper. Nicole's address in Los Angeles. Not her publicist's address or her agent's office. Her actual home address. Lewis looked at the paper. Why are you giving me this? Because Emma Rodriguez called me this morning. Nicole saw your press conference. She understood what you were really saying. And she's ready to talk. Really talk this time. Lewis folded the paper and put it in his pocket. Thank you, Sarah, for everything. Lewis, can I ask you something personal? Haven't you asked enough personal questions already? But Lewis smiled when he said it. Do you think you can forgive her? Really forgive her for making that choice without you? Lewis was quiet for a long moment. Sarah, I've spent 10 years angry at Nicole for leaving me. Now I know she didn't leave because she didn't love me. She left because she loved me so much she was willing to sacrifice everything to protect me. That doesn't answer my question. Yes, it does. How can I be angry at someone for loving me that much? How can I not forgive someone who gave up everything thinking it was what I needed? Sarah nodded. And the baby? Can you forgive her for that choice too? Lewis's eyes filled with tears. The baby. That's harder. Not because I blame Nicole, but because I mourn what we lost. What we could have been as a family. Maybe you can mourn it together instead of separately. Maybe we can. Sarah turned to leave, then stopped. Lewis, one more thing. I won't publish the story without both your consent and Nicole's. But I want you to know that sometimes the most healing stories are the ones that show people they're not alone in their pain. After Sarah left, Lewis sat alone with Nicole's address in his pocket, and 10 years of misunderstanding finally beginning clear. He had a race to drive this weekend. But after that, he had a more important journey to make. To Los Angeles. To Nicole. To the truth they should have faced together 10 years ago. And maybe, if they were both brave enough, to a future they thought they had lost forever. Silverstone Media Center. Sunday post-race, Lewis finished 4th in the British Grand Prix. Not his best result, but his mind hadn't been fully on racing. Every lap he thought about Nicole watching from Los Angeles, understanding his coded message from the press conference. Now he sat in the post-race media session, facing the same journalists who had witnessed his emotional moment 3 days earlier. The room felt different, more respectful somehow. "Lewis, you seemed distracted during the race today. Was your mind elsewhere?" Lewis considered the question carefully. Sometimes life gives you perspective that makes racing feel less important than it used to. "Can you explain what you meant by that?" "I mean that winning races is amazing, but understanding the people who love you is worth more than any trophy." Sarah Chen raised her hand from the back of the room. "Lewis, you spoke earlier this week about people making sacrifices to protect others. Have you learned anything new about those sacrifices?" Lewis looked directly at her. "I've learned that sometimes the people who love us make choices they think are best for us, even when those choices break their own hearts." "How do you feel about that now?" "I feel grateful and sad. Grateful that someone loved me enough to sacrifice their own happiness. Sad that they thought they had to do it alone." Another journalist jumped in. "Are you talking about your past relationships?" Lewis paused. This was his moment to decide. He could deflect, change the subject, protect their privacy completely, or he could say something that might help other people facing impossible choices. "I'm talking about realizing that communication is everything in relationships. That assumptions can destroy what love builds, and that it's never too late to have honest conversations with people you care about." "Lewis, some fans have noticed you seem more emotional lately. Are you going through something personal?" Lewis smiled sadly. "I'm going through something human. Learning truths I wish I had known years ago. Processing feelings I thought I had buried." "Anything you want to share specifically?" "Just this. If someone you love is carrying guilt about a choice they made for you, tell them you understand. Tell them they don't have to carry it alone anymore." The room was quiet. The journalists sensed they were hearing something important, even if they didn't know the full story. "Lewis," Sarah said carefully, "what would you say to people who are afraid to tell the truth because they think it might hurt someone they love?" Lewis leaned forward slightly. "I would say that living with lies hurts more than facing difficult truths. That love means trusting someone enough to let them help you carry your burdens." "And what about forgiveness? Is it possible to forgive someone for making a life-changing decision without consulting you?" Lewis was quiet for a long moment. The cameras captured every emotion crossing his face. Forgiveness isn't just possible. It's necessary, especially when someone made a painful choice thinking they were protecting you. How can you not forgive love like that? The Ferrari press officer started to wrap up the session, but Lewis held up his hand. "Actually, I have one more thing to say." The room went silent. To anyone watching this who has been carrying secrets or guilt about choices they made for someone else, you don't have to carry those burdens alone anymore. The people who love you want to understand, not judge. They want to heal with you, not hurt apart from you. Lewis stood up from the table. "And to one person specifically who might be watching, I understand now. I forgive everything, and I hope you can forgive me for not being someone you felt safe enough to trust with the truth." He walked out of the media center, leaving behind a room full of confused but moved journalists. Ferrari motorhome, 30 minutes later. Lewis sat in the quiet Ferrari hospitality area, most of the team having already left for the airport. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown LA number. "I saw your press conference. Both of them. I understand what you were trying to say." Lewis's hands shook as he typed back, "I know everything. Sarah Chen told me. I'm not angry. I just want to talk." The response came quickly. "I'm scared to talk. Scared you'll hate me when you see me. I could never hate you. I've loved you for 15 years. Learning the truth doesn't change that. Even knowing what I did, what I chose." Lewis stared at his phone for a long time before typing, "especially knowing what you sacrificed." You gave up everything thinking you were protecting me. How could I hate someone for loving me that much? Lewis, I made the hardest choice of my life without you. I took away your right to choose. You made the choice you thought was best with the information you had. I understand why you did it. Do you? Do you really? I understand that you were 29 years old, scared, and convinced that telling me would destroy my championship dreams. I understand that you loved me enough to sacrifice your own happiness for mine. The phone was quiet for several minutes. Lewis wondered if Nicole was crying, like he was. I've regretted it every day for 10 years. Not just the choice, but not telling you. Not trusting you enough to face it together. We can face it together now. If you want. I don't know if I'm strong enough. You are strong enough to make that choice alone. You're strong enough to heal from it together. Another long pause. Where are you? Silverstone. But I can be in LA by tomorrow night if you'll see me. Lewis. What if talking about it just makes everything hurt more? Nicole. We've been hurting separately for 10 years. Maybe it's time to hurt together so we can heal together. I don't know if we can fix this. Too much time has passed. Too much pain. Maybe we can't fix the past. But maybe we can understand it. Maybe we can forgive it. Maybe we can find peace with it. The next message took a long time to come. I'll text you my address. But Lewis, I'm not the same person I was 10 years ago. This broke me in ways I'm still discovering. I'm not the same person either. Maybe that's okay. Maybe the people we are now can handle what the people we were then couldn't. I hope you're right. I hope so too. Lewis put his phone away and walked out of Silverstone for what might be the last time as a man who didn't know the full truth about the most important relationship of his life. Tomorrow, he would fly to Los Angeles. Tomorrow, he would sit across from Nicole Scherzinger, and they would finally have the conversation they should have had 10 years ago. And maybe, if they were both brave enough to face the truth together, they could find a way to heal the wounds that had been bleeding in silence for a decade. Los Angeles. Nicole's home, Malibu Hills, Monday evening. Lewis stood outside Nicole's front door for 5 minutes before knocking. The house was beautiful but modest, tucked into the Malibu Hills with a view of the Pacific Ocean. Nothing like the flashy LA mansion he had imagined. Through the window, he could see her moving around inside. Still graceful, still beautiful. But something in her movements looked careful, guarded. He knocked softly. The door opened, and there she was. Nicole Scherzinger, the woman he had loved for 15 years and lost 10 years ago. She looked older, more fragile somehow, but her eyes were the same dark brown that had captured his heart into Lewis. Nicole. They stood in the doorway. Two people who had shared everything once upon a time, now strangers carrying the weight of a shared tragedy. Come in, she said quietly. Her living room was warm and simple. Family photos, books, a piano in the corner. No racing memorabilia, Lewis noticed. Nothing that would remind her of their past. Can I get you something to drink? Just water, thank you. Nicole disappeared into the kitchen. Lewis heard her taking deep breaths, probably trying to calm herself. When she returned with 2 glasses of water, her hands were shaking slightly. They sat on opposite ends of her sofa, the space between them feeling like an ocean. I don't know where to start, Nicole said. Maybe start with the truth. All of it. Everything you couldn't tell me 10 years ago. Nicole closed her eyes. Lewis, are you sure you want to hear this? Once I tell you everything, you can't unknow it. I need to know. We both need to finally be honest about what happened. Nicole nodded slowly. Okay, but let me tell it from the beginning, without interruption. Because if I stop, I might not be able to start again. Lewis settled back into the sofa. I'm listening. Nicole took a shaky breath and began. October 15th, 2014. You were in Russia for the Grand Prix. I had been feeling sick for weeks. Tired, nauseous. Emma kept joking that I was pregnant, but I laughed it off. She paused, collecting herself. But then I missed my period, and I knew. I took 3 pregnancy tests that day, all positive. Lewis felt his chest tighten, but he stayed quiet. My first feeling was joy. Lewis, pure joy. We were going to have a baby. I was going to have your baby. I started imagining our family, our future. What changed that? Reality? I watched the news coverage of your championship fight with Nico. The reporters talking about your anxiety attacks, your weight loss, your inability to sleep. Marcus called me that same day, worried about your mental state. Nicole's voice began to break. He said you were barely holding it together, that the pressure was destroying you, that if anything else went wrong, you might have a complete breakdown. Lewis remembered that time, the darkest period of his racing career, when every race felt like life or death. So when you found out about the pregnancy, I panicked. Not about being pregnant, but about what it would do to you. Lewis, you were 2 races away from winning your second championship. 2 races from proving you belonged among the greats. Nicole stood up and walked to the window, overlooking the ocean. I kept imagining telling you, you would have been so happy at first. But then reality would have set in. A baby meant responsibilities, distractions, pressure you weren't ready for. You don't know that I couldn't have handled it. Nicole turned back to him, tears streaming down her face. Lewis, you couldn't handle a bad qualifying session without calling me in tears. How were you going to handle becoming a father while fighting for a championship? Lewis felt the truth of her words, even as they stung. I made lists, Nicole continued. Pros and cons of telling you versus not telling you. Every scenario ended with you losing focus, losing races, losing the championship, and then hating me for costing you your dreams. She sat back down, closer to Lewis this time. So I made the decision alone. I called the clinic, I made the appointment. I told myself I was protecting both of us. And Emma? Emma tried to talk me out of it. She said we should call you, tell you everything, let you choose. But I was terrified. Lewis, terrified that if I told you, you would choose me and the baby over racing, and then spend the rest of your life wondering what you could have achieved. Lewis reached over and took her hand. It was cold and trembling. Nicole, did it ever occur to you that I might have chosen both? That I might have found a way to be a father and still race? No, she whispered. It never occurred to me that you were strong enough to handle both. I thought I had to choose for you. They sat in silence for a moment, holding hands across the years of misunderstanding. Tell me about the day, Lewis said gently. October 20. Nicole's grip on his hand tightened. You were in Austin, qualifying for the US Grand Prix. I watched on TV while Emma drove me to the clinic. You looked so focused, so determined. I kept thinking, I'm doing this for him, so he can have that focus. She was crying harder now. The procedure was quick, 20 minutes. But Lewis, it was the longest 20 minutes of my life. I kept thinking about our baby, about the family we would never have, and I kept telling myself it was the right choice. But you regretted it, immediately. As soon as it was over, I knew I had made a terrible mistake. Not because I was wrong about the pressure it would cause, but because I had stolen your right to choose. I had made the most important decision of our lives without you. Lewis moved closer to her on the sofa. What happened after? I fell apart. I could barely function. I watched you win in Austin, then Brazil, then the championship in Abu Dhabi, and I felt like a fraud. Like I was celebrating a victory built on the sacrifice of our child. Is that why you didn't come to the championship celebration? Nicole nodded. I flew to London, planning to tell you everything. I was going to confess, beg for your forgiveness, and pray that somehow we could move forward together. But you didn't tell me. I couldn't. I saw you at the party, so happy, so relieved. You had achieved your dream. How could I tell you that your dream had cost us our baby? How could I destroy your happiness with my guilt? Lewis understood now. All of it. The sudden distance after his championship. The way Nicole had seemed sad even when they were together. The eventual breakup that never made sense. So you decided to leave me instead. I convinced myself it was better that way. That you could find someone who hadn't made such a terrible choice. Someone who could give you the family you deserved, without the weight of what I had done. Nicole looked directly at Lewis for the first time since starting her story. Lewis, I want you to understand something. I didn't leave because I didn't love you. I left because I loved you so much that I couldn't bear to see you hate me when you eventually learned the truth. Lewis pulled Nicole closer to him. Nicole, look at me. She met his eyes, both of them crying now. I could never hate you for loving me that much. For sacrificing everything you wanted because you thought it was what I needed. But our baby. Lewis said softly. I mourn our baby. I mourn the family we could have had. But I don't blame you for the choice you made with the information you had. Nicole collapsed against his chest, 10 years of guilt and pain pouring out of her. I'm so sorry, Lewis. I'm so sorry I didn't trust you enough to face it together. I'm sorry I took away your choice. I'm sorry I've been carrying this alone. Lewis held her as she sobbed, his own tears falling into her hair. I'm sorry too. Sorry that you felt so scared and alone that you thought you had to handle this by yourself. Sorry that I was so focused on racing that you couldn't trust me to handle our real life. They held each other for a long time, grieving together for the first time. Grieving their lost child, their lost relationship, their lost 10 years of wondering and hurting apart. Finally, Nicole pulled back and looked at him. Lewis, can you forgive me? Really, truly forgive me? Lewis cupped her face in his hands. Nicole, there's nothing to forgive. You made an impossible choice with impossible circumstances. You thought you were protecting me, protecting us. How can I not forgive love like that? And can you forgive yourself? For not being someone I felt safe enough to trust? Lewis considered the question seriously. I'm learning too. I was young and obsessed with proving myself. I made racing feel like life or death, which made you think our real life had to take second place. Nicole smiled through her tears. We were both so young, so scared of making the wrong choice. Maybe we both made the wrong choices. But maybe we can make better ones now. What do you mean? Lewis took her hands in his. I mean, maybe we can stop living in the past. Stop carrying guilt about choices that can't be changed. Maybe we can find peace with what happened and figure out who we are now. Nicole studied his face. Lewis, do you think we can ever be friends again? After everything? Lewis smiled sadly. Nicole, I think we can be anything we choose to be. We just have to choose together this time. They sat together as the sun set over Malibu, two people who had lost everything, and found each other again, not as the young couple they had been, but as the wiser, sadder, stronger people they had become. For the first time in 10 years, neither of them was carrying their burden alone, and that felt like the beginning of healing. Maranello, Italy. Ferrari factory. 6 months later, Lewis walked through the Ferrari factory with a lightness in his step that his mechanics had never seen before. The famous red cars gleamed under the industrial lights, but Lewis seemed more interested in the people working on them than the machines themselves. You seem different, Lewis, said his race engineer Carlo during their morning briefing. More present. Lewis smiled. I feel more present. Like I'm actually living my life instead of just performing it. The 2024 season had been Lewis's best in years. Not because he was winning every race, but because he was racing with joy again instead of desperation. The weight he had carried for a decade was finally gone. His phone buzzed with a text, "Saw your interview with Sky Sports yesterday. You looked happy. Really happy." Lewis smiled and typed back, "I am happy. How's the studio work going?" "Amazing, I'm writing songs again. Real songs. From the heart. Thank you for that. Thank you for trusting me with the truth. It set us both free." They texted occasionally now. Not romantic messages, but the kind of supportive communications that old friends send each other. Lewis had worried that staying in touch might be painful, but instead it felt healing. Nicole was thriving in Los Angeles. Her new album was getting critical acclaim, with music journalists praising the emotional depth and honesty in her songs. She had started therapy too, working through not just their shared trauma, but her own patterns of self-sacrifice in relationships. Lewis had done the same. Therapy had helped him understand how his obsession with proving himself had made the people he loved feel unsafe about sharing their fears and needs. "Lewis, you have that team meeting in 5 minutes." His assistant reminded him. Right, the foundation meeting. Lewis had expanded his charitable foundation after their conversation in Malibu. He was now funding counseling programs for young people facing difficult choices and support groups for couples dealing with pregnancy loss. It felt like turning their pain into purpose. Los Angeles. Recording studio. Hollywood. Same day. Nicole sat at the piano in her favorite recording studio, working on the final track for her new album. The song was called October Rain, and it was the most personal thing she had ever written. "Made a choice in the October rain, thought I was saving you from pain, but love don't work that way. Some bridges burn, some hearts remain." Her producer, James, listened from the control booth. Nicole, that's beautiful. You want to talk about what inspired it? Nicole looked up from the piano. It's about learning that protecting someone you love sometimes means trusting them with the truth, even when it's scary. Sounds like there's a story there. There is. But it's a story about healing now, not just about hurting. Nicole's phone showed a text from Lewis. Heard your new single on the radio today. It's incredible. You're incredible. She smiled and replied, thank you. How was your day at Ferrari? Good. Different. I actually enjoyed talking to the engineers about next year's car, instead of worrying about proving myself. Growth looks good on you. It looks good on both of us. Nicole put her phone away and returned to the piano. After their conversation in Malibu, she had expected either complete reconciliation or complete separation. Instead, they had found something more valuable, peace. They weren't together romantically. Too much had happened. Too much time had passed for that to work easily. But they weren't strangers anymore either. They were two people who had loved each other deeply, hurt each other accidentally, and finally found a way to heal together. James, I think I'm ready to record this one. London. Sarah Chen's office. Same evening. Sarah Chen sat at her desk working on a different story entirely. She had won 2 journalism awards in the past 6 months, but not for the Lewis Hamilton story she had never published. Instead, she had written a series about mental health in professional sports, inspired by her conversations with Lewis and Nicole. The articles had helped dozens of athletes come forward about their struggles with anxiety and depression. Her editor knocked on her door. Sarah, I have to ask, you never did write that Hamilton story, did you? The one about his emotional interview. Sarah looked up. No, I didn't. Any regrets? None at all. Sometimes the best stories are the ones that help people heal instead of entertaining readers. That's not very commercial of you. Sarah smiled. Maybe not, but it's human. After her editor left, Sarah opened her laptop and looked at a saved document titled The Lewis Hamilton Story Final Notes. She had kept detailed records of everything she had learned, but had never written the exposé. Instead, she had written something different. A story about forgiveness, about the courage it takes to face difficult truths, and about how love sometimes means making impossible choices. She had shown the draft to both Lewis and Nicole separately. Both had given her permission to publish it, but with one condition: all proceeds from the story would go to organizations supporting couples dealing with pregnancy loss. Sarah had agreed immediately. The story would publish next month, not as a tabloid exposé, but as a thoughtful piece in a respected magazine about grief, healing, and the power of honest communication in relationships. Stevenage. The Hamilton family home. Same evening. Lewis sat in his father's garden, watching Anthony tend to his roses. It was the same garden where Lewis had played as a child, dreaming of racing glory. You seem settled, son. I feel settled. For the first time in years, Anthony looked up from his flowers. It's Nicole, isn't it? Whatever you two worked out in Los Angeles. Lewis nodded. We finally told each other the truth. All of it. And we forgave each other for being human. And now we're friends. Real friends. We text about normal things. She sends me pictures of her dog. I tell her about races. It's simple and honest and good. Anthony smiled. Sometimes the best relationships are the ones that survive being broken and rebuilt. We didn't rebuild what we had, Dad. We built something new, something stronger. And you're happy with that? Lewis considered the question. I'm at peace with it. And peace feels better than happiness based on lies or assumptions. What about love? Do you still love her? I'll always love Nicole. But I love her enough now to want what's best for her, even if that's not me. And she loves me the same way. Anthony nodded approvingly. That's mature love, son. The kind that lasts even when relationships change. Lewis's phone buzzed. A text from Nicole. Just finished recording. The song we talked about. The October one. I think you'll understand it when you hear it. He typed back. Can't wait to hear it. Proud of you for finding your voice again. Proud of you for finding your peace. We did good, didn't we? Finally talking. We did really good. Lewis put his phone away and helped his father with the roses. The sun was setting over Stevenage, the same sunset he had watched as a boy with impossible dreams. But now his dreams were different. Simpler. More honest. He wanted to race well, love openly, and live without the weight of secrets. And for the first time in 10 years, all of those dreams felt possible. because he had learned that healing wasn't about forgetting the past or pretending it didn't happen. Healing was about facing the truth together, forgiving each other's humanity, and choosing to build something better from the pieces of what was broken. Louis and Nicole had done that, and they were both finally truly free. London, BBC Sports Studios. 1 year later. Sarah Chen adjusted her notes as the familiar studio lights warmed up around her. The same red chair where Lewis Hamilton had sat exactly 1 year ago. The same backdrop, the same cameras, but everything else had changed. Lewis walked into the studio looking completely different from the man who had frozen at her question 12 months earlier. He moved with quiet confidence, his smile genuine rather than practiced. "Good to see you again, Sarah." "You too, Lewis. Ready for this?" "More than ready." The floor manager counted them in, and Sarah began with the same professional warmth she always brought to interviews. "Welcome back to BBC Sport. I'm Sarah Chen, and today I'm joined by Lewis Hamilton, fresh off his third-place finish at the Monaco Grand Prix. Lewis, it's been quite a year for you." Lewis leaned forward, completely relaxed. "It really has, Sarah. Both professionally and personally. You seem different than when we spoke last year. More at peace, if I can put it that way." "That's exactly right. I've learned a lot about myself this past year, about what really matters." Sarah glanced at her notes. They had discussed this interview beforehand. Lewis wanted to address their famous exchange from a year ago, but on his own terms. "Lewis, last year you had quite an emotional reaction during our interview when I asked about past relationships. Can you tell us what that was about?" Lewis smiled calmly. "That was about realizing that I had been living with assumptions for 10 years. Making up stories in my head about why relationships ended instead of seeking the truth. And did you find the truth you were looking for?" "I did. And it was both more painful and more healing than I expected." "How so?" Lewis paused. Thoughtfully. "I learned that people sometimes make sacrifices for us that we never know about. That love doesn't always look the way we expect it to. And that honest communication can heal wounds that have been festering for years." That sounds like it came from personal experience. It did. I had a conversation with someone I cared about deeply, someone I had misunderstood for a long time. We were finally able to tell each other the truth about some very difficult things. Sarah nodded. "And how did that change your perspective?" "It taught me that forgiveness isn't just about letting go of anger. It's about understanding why people make the choices they make. And sometimes those choices come from love, even when they cause pain." You've also expanded your charitable foundation this year, focusing on mental health and support for difficult life decisions. Lewis's face lit up. "That's been incredibly rewarding. We're helping people have conversations they've been afraid to have. We're showing them that they don't have to face difficult choices alone." What inspired that focus? Realizing that my own pain came from silence and assumption. I want to help other people avoid that by encouraging honest communication and providing support when life gets complicated. Sarah smiled. "It sounds like you've found real purpose in this work." "I have. Racing will always be important to me, but helping people heal from trauma and communicate better, that feels like my real legacy." Speaking of racing, you've had a strong season with Ferrari. How has your approach to the sport changed? "I race with joy now instead of desperation. I'm not trying to prove anything to anyone anymore. I'm just trying to do my best and enjoy the process." That must feel liberating. It really does. When you stop racing to fill emotional holes, you start racing because you love it, and that makes you better, not worse. Sarah checked her watch. They were approaching the end of the interview, but she had one more important question. "Lewis, if you could go back and give advice to your younger self, say 10 years ago, what would you tell him?" Lewis considered this carefully. "I would tell him that the people who love you want to share your burdens, not add to them. That trust is more important than protection. And that having difficult conversations early can prevent years of pain later." "And what about advice for people watching who might be facing their own difficult conversations?" Lewis looked directly into the camera. "I would say that the truth might hurt in the moment, but lies hurt forever. That the people who love you want to understand you, not judge you. And that it's never too late to choose honesty over assumption." Beautiful advice. Lewis Hamilton, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Sarah, for everything. As the cameras stopped rolling, Lewis and Sarah shook hands. "Thank you for that," Lewis said quietly. "For giving me the chance to address it properly." Thank you for trusting me with your story. Both the private version and the public one. Lewis smiled. You know, a year ago I was terrified of the truth. Now I can't imagine living any other way. Los Angeles. Private music venue. Same evening. Nicole stood on the small stage, guitar in hand, looking out at an intimate audience of about 50 people. This wasn't a big concert or a publicity event. It was a private performance for friends, family, and supporters of a pregnancy loss charity. This next song is very personal to me, she said into the microphone. It's about a choice I made many years ago that I thought was protecting someone I loved. I was wrong about a lot of things back then, but I wasn't wrong about the love. She began playing the opening chords of her song, her voice clear and strong as she sang about October rain and difficult choices and learning to forgive yourself for being human. In the audience, Emma Rodriguez wiped tears from her eyes. After carrying Nicole's secret for 10 years, watching her friend sing about it publicly felt like witnessing a miracle. After the performance, Nicole hugged Emma backstage. How did that feel? Emma asked. Like freedom, Nicole said. Like I finally stopped running from my own story. Her phone buzzed with a text from Lewis. Watching the live stream from London. You were incredible. That song made me cry, but in a good way. Nicole smiled and typed back. Thank you for making it possible for me to sing it. How was your BBC interview? Good. Healing. I think we've both learned how to tell our story in a way that helps instead of hurts. We really have, haven't we? We have. I'm proud of us. Me too. Nicole put her phone away and looked around the small venue. A year ago, she couldn't have imagined being able to sing about their story publicly. Now it felt like the most natural thing in the world, because it wasn't their secret anymore. It was their truth, transformed into something that could help other people facing impossible choices. Malibu. Nicole's home later that night. Nicole sat on her deck overlooking the Pacific Ocean, the same view she had stared at so many nights when the guilt felt unbearable. Tonight, the ocean looked peaceful, instead of threatening. Her phone rang. Lewis. Hey, she answered. Hey, just wanted to tell you how proud I am of you for tonight. Thank you. I never thought I'd be able to sing about it publicly. And now it feels like the most important song I've ever written. Not just for me, but for other people who might be carrying similar guilt. That's exactly how I felt during my interview today. Like we were finally using our story to help instead of just hurt. Nicole smiled. We've come a long way from that phone call a year ago when I hung up on you. Lewis laughed. We really have. Nicole, can I ask you something? Anything. Do you think we made the right choice? Not getting back together romantically, I mean. Nicole was quiet for a moment. Considering Lewis, I think we made the choice that honored who we are now instead of who we used to be. And I think that's always the right choice. I agree. I love you. But I love you in a way that wants your happiness over my wants. That's exactly how I love you too. And honestly, that feels more mature and sustainable than what we had before. Plus, you're dating that nice musician guy now. Jake? Nicole laughed. His name is James. And yes, he's wonderful. And patient. And I actually told him about our history before we got serious. How did that go? He said he was grateful I trusted him with the truth. He said it showed him I had learned how to communicate honestly. Smart man. What about you? Still seeing that teacher from London? Amanda. Yes. And yes, I told her everything too. She had a similar reaction to your James. They were quiet for a moment, both appreciating how different their lives had become. Lewis, do you think we'll stay friends? Really stay friends, even as our lives change? Nicole, I think we'll always be connected, maybe not in the way we once were, but in a way that honors everything we've been through together. I like that. Me too. As they hung up, both Lewis and Nicole felt something they hadn't experienced in over a decade. Complete peace with their past and genuine excitement about their futures. They had learned that love wasn't always about staying together. Sometimes love was about helping each other become the people they were meant to be, even if that meant growing in different directions. A year ago, Lewis Hamilton had frozen when asked about Nicole Scherzinger on live television. Tonight, he could speak about forgiveness and healing with genuine wisdom. Tonight, Nicole could sing about their most painful experience and transform it into hope for others. They had both learned that the truth, no matter how difficult, was always better than the most beautiful lie. and that sometimes the greatest love story is about learning to love each other enough to let each other go, while still holding space for the love that would always remain. We'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and tell us your city or country. It's amazing to connect with listeners from around the world who appreciate stories about love, healing, and the courage to face difficult truths. If this story moved you, please hit that like button. It really helps us reach more people who might need to hear messages about forgiveness and honest communication. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more compelling stories that explore the human side of life's biggest moments. Most importantly, if you know someone who might benefit from this story, whether they're struggling with difficult choices, carrying guilt from the past, or learning to heal from painful experiences, please share this video with them. Sometimes the stories that touch us most are exactly what someone else needs to hear. Thank you for taking this emotional journey with us. Remember, it's never too late to choose truth over silence, healing over hurting, and love over fear. Until next time, keep spreading kindness and awareness in your own corner of the world.